We're gonna have a good evening. Good evening. We're gonna call the meeting to order at 6:42 p.m. I'd like to go ahead and take a roll, please, if we can. Can we just I'll call your name. If you could say your last name, because I may forget. If I call you, just say your name, so we can speak a little. I was told that we need to speak louder, and so we'll try to hear. If anyone can't hear us that's viewing us, please just type it in the chat, and we'll make sure that we try to speak up. But there may be times we forget. Thank you. So we'll go around, starting with Ms. Melton.
Here, Lafayette Milton.
Mrs. Springs.
Today Springs, present.
President.
Oh, Marsha Ridley,
President.
president. I'm sorry.
Daniel Jones, present.
Kelvin Duvall, President.
Carlos Sanchez, present.
Earl O'Neill, present. Keenan James, present.
Danny Bergman, here.
And absent will be, Mrs. Andrea Coleman. And I think right now for the roll, I think, Sheila Bryan is absent. So, is that Angie? Okay, great, you're welcome. Moving on to the agenda, we have the minutes from February 23rd, 2023. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from that day? 22nd, I'm sorry. Okay, 23rd, 22nd.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes,
From February,
22nd.
okay. There's a motion on the floor to approve the minutes February 22nd, 2023.
Second.
Seconded, motion made by Marsha Ridley, seconded by Carlos Sanchez. Go around and take a roll, to speak. Starting with Mr. Milton.
Aye.
Springs.
Today Springs, aye.
Marsha Ridley, aye.
Jones, aye.
Kelvin Duvall, aye.
Carlos Sanchez, yes.
Earl O'Neill, yes.
Keenan James, yes.
Danny B, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for that energy, Dan.
Yeah, that's Danny B. Thank you. Okay. Minutes are approved. Old business, great thing. Strategic planning session. Session 1. Joe, you have the floor.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, can I just make a request that perhaps we finish the other part and come back? 'Cause
Okay.
people have not eaten and,
Yeah, we can't eat on camera though.
yeah, but when we
Okay,
take that
so
break.
I'll go ahead. Is that okay? Okay, so we'll do that. There was an announcement that went out for the AHB civilian positions. Did everyone get a chance to review that? I know, Marsha, you did.
Yeah.
Yes,
Can I
ma'am.
make a disclaimer? I'm worst at proofreading my own stuff, and so this is a first draft of everything. So you may find some things in there. I understood it wasn't gonna go from here to press.
Okay. All right. So, we know, Marsha, you had some.
She gave us,
Okay.
I
Oh,
gave
that's
it.
right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Would it be easier if we sent you an email with written feedback so that you could incorporate it more easily?
well, if you discuss, if it's substantive, if it's just, corrections and spelling and but it's like that, some typos, then you can do that, but if it's substantive about what the content was, maybe
Okay.
we should discuss it so everybody can hear it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and, thank you, Danny. Move to the new business. So under new business, I have one thing. I wanted to go ahead, I wish everybody was here, but it'll be recorded. So, I know people were consider who was gonna be the vice chair, so I spoke with the person, and I asked if Carlos Sanchez would serve as our vice chair. He, so graciously said yes. Didn't even have to pay him. So thank you.
Robbie was saying
So Thank you, yeah, thank you so much, I really appreciate that, so, he's excited about it, and, you know, we've seen his energy, and, we had some great conversations, so thank you so much. Yes, sir.
Motion to approve Carlos Sanchez as the vice chair.
I second.
All in favor? We just did it for you, Dan. But thank you.
Excuse me, Chair.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
I didn't, hear who seconded that motion.
Oh.
I did. Me, Sandy.
I didn't know we had this, we did not second it, did we? With Martha Joe?
I mean, maybe we didn't need a motion in the
Formality.
first place.
Okay.
Then
Didn't
don't worry
need a
about it.
motion.
All right.
It didn't.
So since we did that, now let's take the roll, so we'll make it legit. Thank you, Danny, you owe us pizza. You know where I'm gonna stop, Mr.
Lafayette Melton, aye.
Tamika Springs, aye.
Marcia Ridley, aye.
Tim Jones, aye.
Kelvin Duvall, aye.
Earl O'Neill, aye.
Okay.
Or not say no anyway.
Mr. O'Neill, please, we can hear you one more time.
Earl O'Neill, aye.
Keenan James, aye.
Danny B, yes,
Yeah.
Thank you. Motion approved, okay.
unanimously.
Hey, yeah, good one, cool. That's all that I had, other than, so I know that, the ACC, I spoke with them, and I think that there's gonna be a meeting, so we're gonna discuss some processes of making sure that we get, some of the data and things like that sent over for us, to review. I know that Denise has been talking to the program manager for the ACC, and I spoke with her yesterday, so we're making sure that we're gonna get that for every meeting. And we're gonna talk about the different categories and things like that, how we wanna, start having that come in, and we can, have the different categories, and we'll talk about that, moving forward. Oh, you had something?
No,
Okay.
after the meeting.
So, I guess I'll have more on that hopefully at the next, well, sure, definitely by the next meeting, but I'm hoping to have some more on that by Friday. Anybody have anything else, Mr. Vice Chair? Yeah.
Yes, a formal introduction of Mr.
Oh, yes, there you go. Oh, look, you fit in, you're not. So, yes, I did ask him to speak, so, Daniel, would you go ahead and, just introduce yourself, thanks.
Yeah, well, hello, everyone watching. My name is Desmond Jones. Honored to be here, very excited to be here. I've been waiting a while. You know, I know you guys have gotten started, so been waiting, been itching to get here, so I'm glad to be in the room with you guys, and I'm, glad to do this very, very important work. Thank you, the chair, for the very warm reception. Congrats to the new vice chair. Yeah, it's an honor, it's a pleasure to serve, my home county, and I'm just ready to, you know, hit the ground and get going, so it's a pleasure to be here with you all. Thank you.
Welcome, thank you, welcome. Love that new energy. So, lunch is on,
I got the next one, guys.
All right, Denise, anybody have anything on yourself? Okay, cool. That's it for that, announcements. Don't really have any announcements other than, I guess that was the new business. So real quick, I did speak with, again, the facilitator for the, Citizens Police Academy. They want to give us training. We're going to meet to try to work on the curriculum for us, because that's a 12-week program. So they're going to try to condense it and get it done. I don't know, we don't know if we're going to have it here. More than likely, it'll be at the building on Presidential Parkway. I believe that's where the new, office building is now. So hopefully we'll work on that, and, I'll meet with her next week. We're supposed to meet next week and talk about that. And then before anything is approved, I'll make sure we send it out to everyone so you guys can take a look at it. If there's anything you want to add, let me know, and then, we'll make sure that gets. One of the things that I think we should actually definitely take is shoot, don't shoot. I think we all should go through that. That was it on my end as far as announcements, Marvin Joe. You almost ready? Okay.
I think, are you gonna take a break and then, because they need to get the
Oh,
documents?
okay, cool. So at
And
this,
yeah.
okay, thank you. So at this point, we will take our 15-minute break, so you guys can, finish the business at hand that we were taking care of, and then we'll come back. So right now, it is, 6:52, so we'll come back at, I'm bad at math, that'd be 10, so let's make it, 7 minutes, no. 10, 11, 12, okay, 7:10. Don't laugh, Mrs. Springs. 7:10, we'll reconvene. So right now, we're in break. We're back in. back in open session at 7:11.
I like that.
7-11.
7:11, okay. Marva Joe, you have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so, as we discussed, based on the responses back from members of the, board, that we have the strategic planning as part of our regular sessions. And so, given the amount and the fact that I suspect that you all would not want to be here until midnight or so, we're going to divide it up. The first one that we will be doing today has to do with the type, the terms we're using, issues around the rules of procedure, and vision, the mission, the goals, the objectives, the milestones, and the measures. Mr. Chairman has said that we have an hour and a half,
That's right.
so we'll see how far we get through tonight, and we will stop by 8:30. And whatever we haven't completed, we would move to the next one, which is 2 weeks from now. And at the next one, following the completion of this, we'll start on the community outreach. So almost in the same order that the survey questions came. Okay, so some of the things, and I just want to give you context, what we have in here is based on a couple of things. It is based on the answers to the surveys that members did. It is based on stuff that you found in the legislation, and is based on the guidance. You'll see a lot of empty spots, because that's for you all to decide, but what we populated was those things that have already kind of been included somewhere. But let me be clear, you do not have to keep it, because some of it is guidance, which you're welcome to do or not do, but we wanted to make sure we at least put everything that's out in the environment for you all to consider. The other thing is you will see, so let me just go through so we can hopefully get through, and I'll explain it as we go. You will see that we are recommending the short-term and long-term. That is based on the votes that we got in the surveys to do both. The short-term, we are suggesting starts April 1 and ends June 30th, 2024. And that short-term plan would be done, we're proposing be done by the entire PAB. The long-term we're suggesting goes from April 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2026. Those dates are based on this board, and the 26th is the last term of anybody who's sitting here. So it would end at the same time that the last person would still be here. That's just so you know how we came up. And for the long term, we're recommending that there be a subcommittee that should take the long term and make those recommendations. Any questions on that?
Committee meaning the county council.
No, subcommittee of this
Oh,
group.
just, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Just thank you.
And that was based on recommendations that came in the survey as well, that some things we could do as a whole and other things we could do as you all could do as a subcommittee. The next one is, and this is in response to, thank you, Mr. Melton and Mr. Bergamini, made some recommendations that we be clear on what terms we were using. We had made some recommendations, and so you will see those terms, and we can go into them in more detail later. But what we are recommending based on the comments is that the strategic plan include a vision, include a mission, one that we talked about a little bit but not in detail, either strategic pillars or guiding principles. Maybe you all would have another name if you decide you want it, milestones, and then key measures. The next has to do with the rules of procedure. Again, you all voted on whether you wanted it included in the strategic plan or not. Based on the responses we got back, it appeared that there was an equal distribution of it in or out, but there was one that took it over, and the suggestion was that we put it in, but in the appendix, and not in the body of the strategic plan. The next, and I know this might not make sense to you, use of the word Prince George's County in the goals. In some, there was do this in Prince George's County, and whether or not you wanted that language for each one of the goals, so you all can just decide that as we are writing it. And I'm gonna take it up through the mission and the objectives, and then we'll start. The next is, and this was Mr. Melton in particular, had made reference to making sure we had the same nomenclature. And so what I did was pull, what we might call, how we might see vision, mission, goals, objectives, milestones, and measures. And here we talk about mission as a general statement of how you achieve your vision. Strategies are a series of ways of using the mission to achieve the vision. Goals are statements of what needs to be accomplished to implement the strategy. Objectives are specific actions and timelines for achieving the goal. The ones that are underlined came from Mr. Melton, thank you. Milestones are important points in progress, and key measures are quantifiable metrics to evaluate success. So I guess the first question I want to make sure, one, the terms that we are suggesting that we include in the strategic plan, is there agreement on that, or if you would like to use others other than the vision, the mission, and the guiding principles? You can hold off that for a minute, milestones and key measures. Does anybody have issues with that being the format?
I just have a question as far as the term milestones. So we're using that to signify just like points we want to hit in the progression of the board, like, and we should be by this point at this time? Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, not to skip ahead, when I look at the example of this format, that you provided on the next page, I think it aligns with the definitions pretty
Okay.
well, so.
And so we're comfortable with all of the if anybody wants to change, but it's just so we were kind of looking at it the same as we started to discuss it. And let me jump ahead, if you don't mind, before we go back to the mission. You see at the top of page 2 where we talked about strategic pillars and guiding principles. And I'm remiss because I met with the staff. We spent a pretty considerable time, and I wanted to thank them for the work and trying to help put this together. But in some of the other strategic plannings, there was the opportunity to put maybe some kind of key words or guiding principles. Don't know if you all are interested in including that in the strategic plan. What we did was put it as an option if you want it, and then under there made some recommendations with what those would be. So I guess the first question is, do you want to include those strategic pillars or guiding principles? And if you do, which of the two things would you want to call it, or if there's something else you want to call it? And let me just say, I'm going to be very, I know we're going in kind of great detail, so once we finish that section, we don't have to come back. So that's why I'm going into so much detail, asking you all the questions. So I guess the first one is, do you want to have either strategic pillars or guiding principles included in a strategic plan?
With those, would you want to put a definition of it?
We can, and I have seen it where they have it, and then they might have a little verbiage, but I didn't want to go through that if you all decided you didn't even want it.
I didn't know what you had in mind.
Yeah.
I've seen something very similar in a lot of things. It's also sometimes called values or.
Right.
To me, which word choice you use is the same.
Well, you all choose what word choice you want. So what would you all like? These or any other one?
Personally, I'm leaning towards guiding principles. It sounds, I think, it's talking about our direction that we're moving in, so I think I like that phrasing personally, out of the two options we have in front of us.
Anybody have any?
Yeah, I like guiding principles or values, either or. I think the reason why I say that is because I kind of want to move away from it being confused with strategic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why we gave, I like the guiding principles, because I think it just tells you what's going to kind of move the vision and the mission. We now actually put 5 of them. We don't have to use them. You can give us other ones, but those are the ones we're looking at. And if it's okay with you, I will just go down them and you can say yay or nay, and or if you have other ones when we get to the last one. Guiding accountability.
Right here.
Transparency,
Yes,
excellence,
yes,
community engagement.
definitely.
I'm just saying, yeah, I like it personally.
And the last one, collaboration.
I'm
What do we-
gonna vote a meh on that one. But,
Well,
I mean,
It's,
I'm not hard against it, but,
we don't
I
have,
think the first 4 are great.
Mhm.
okay,
As much of a fan of the last one as
why don't we take
whether
a,
somebody else is really good.
So the one that I have a question about is excellence. I'm just trying to think about, I know what it means, but I'm trying to figure out how you measure it. Some of these I can kind of figure out, but I'm just trying to think about it as a guiding principle, like excellence, like.
so the metrics, I think, as we look at it, will be on the objectives, won't be on this. This is just to give some sense of who you all are as a board.
If we pick the language or something, but think of it as, these are values. Doesn't necessarily lead to, or an objective doesn't necessarily answer back to some of those things. Just one way of thinking about it.
Ride down that street, I'm just trying to see how it works.
Yeah.
I'm struggling on the excellence piece. I think it's a great guiding principle, but it's just, yeah, I have to kind of see it manifest. I understand what you're saying, it's just not manifesting for
Yeah, I
me.
mean, to me, I think, when I think, and I hear guiding principles and, as we've said, also it's values, it means what we apply to the work that we're doing. So none of these things do I think we're actually going to set up metrics to gauge how we're accomplishing them. We're just saying these are the things that we apply to every piece of work that we do. So I get your concern on it, but I think because we're not really setting goals and milestones based off of this is just saying everything we approach, we'll approach with accountability, transparency, excellence. I think that makes it a little
Right,
easier.
so in my mind, I'm just taking excellence and I'm putting professionalism on it, right?
Oh, yeah.
You understand what I mean? I think that's what you're trying to convey, but I was just like, excellence.
Well, I don't know, in this one, it wasn't necessarily meant for it was just, you come to, I think what Carlos said, is you come to everything, no matter what you do, if it's community outreach, you come with excellence, if you come up with, your rules of procedure, it's just, it's a value statement of who you wanna be and how you wanna be seen, is really what it was.
No, I'm fine with it. Like I said, I'll go down the road with it. I just wanted to make sure I understood it.
So then let me go back, 'cause it sounds some unreadiness on the collaboration one. Is that one you all want to take off?
I think so, yeah.
Yes? Okay. Thank you.
If I could just say to the excellence piece, I was kind of on the same page with you there. I could take it or leave it, but I do think, to your point, it's a little, ambiguous, kind of a little unclear. But I think the other 3 points very much hit, exactly, very clearly what we're doing here. But again, I'm not saying take it off. I'm just saying I could take it or leave it personally. So I just wanted to say I understand your point.
Okay, so now we're gonna move to go back onto page 1. And I think Denise indicated that she had asked you all to come ready with recommendations on vision. So we did not write a vision, wanted to wait for you all. So, whoever wants to start with their recommendations on what that should look like. Really wish we had a whiteboard so we could write it up there. Who wants to, yeah, I don't think, I'll let you. So, let's start there. Who has their recommendations for vision? Everybody looking like,
Yeah.
does anybody have their recommendation yet for vision?
So I guess maybe we should have a quick conversation about how everyone's view of what the vision actually means, right? Because I think So the vision, and work that I've done previously, right? The vision is where we wanna go, and the mission is how we get there, right? So the vision should have aspects of, if we do the work that we're supposed to be doing correctly, what will it look like at the end, right? So, it can be phrases, right, sometimes it can be words, it doesn't have to be like a well-written paragraph, right? They can-
Right, it can be very,
It can, yeah.
and
so-
aspirational, which is,
Right,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, so thinking about different attributes of that, vision, one of the first things that I know was important for me was just a safer county.
Mhm.
So that's one aspect that I would just throw out there. If other people have, characteristics or attributes about this vision, maybe we can do that a little bit, and it might help gel something together.
Think about the word equitable, in what we're doing, you know. Because, I mean, you know, the site was under the complaints, trying to make sure everything, you know, well, not necessarily X%, but the mission.
Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I think back a lot to the piece of transparency. I think I see this all going, like, this board and the work that we do being an opportunity for our community to feel like they understand what's happening with policing and understand, you know, how we're working on their behalf and how the police department's working on their behalf, so I just see this as being really big on helping kind of that, mitigating that transparency and that communication, so that visibility with the, you know, residents of the county.
What I'm gonna do, because I think it's really important, we talked about it and really did not wanna write that piece of it.
Okay.
So what I'm gonna do is give you all 5 minutes to work on a vision recommendation, and we'll talk about it. 5 minutes? Well, y'all had a week in 5 minutes, but.
Don't say that.
I'm just messing.
It's 5 minutes, 5 minutes.
5 minutes. And if you need more time, then we're happy to give it to you.
I just wanna add, so far, you said safer county, equitable, and transparent.
So that's called understanding communication, that's the words that he had. So whatever you write, I need you to write it in the vision, not the bullet point. And see how I even gave y'all space on the paper?
Mhm. Yeah, it's a lot of things.
I know.
Oh, on the front side, okay, sorry. I was on the page. Thank you. Got you.
Then it'd be.
You're funny.
Yeah. You're making notes, right?
What's next?
And we in the weeds on this.
Mr. Overachiever, right there.
We're in the weeds, get it done, because we're not gonna return to it. Y'all gonna agree, move to the next.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, that's, you know, you had that energy tonight, so, you know, that's showing
All
me.
the donuts.
Is that what it is?
The sugar aisle,
Just bring the sugar, I can't bring them and put them in front of Danny, but that's.
We have about 2 more minutes. Done.
Really? Oh, you can turn it over when you're done? Wait on Mrs. Springs.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a and,
Y'all want that?
You know what I mean?
Get that dot.
Let me put that down before you
The
real
phrase
quick.
stuff and things is in your
Right.
business. You gotta rewrite it a little bit. And then some stuff and things.
FECC, dot. Like, say, I'm sick, dot, like,
It ain't easy. People take months to come up
That's
with
what-
it.
Yeah. But that is one of the cornerstones of a successful company, you have a big thing, you know.
It may be, and I would be, but at least need to start it.
I think sometimes you get something on paper and you give people a couple days to look at it and think about it.
Even if we had 5 days already.
Thank you.
We'll give it another 14.
Like the team thing.
And we have 1 more minute.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm sorry.
Alternative phrases.
Okay, we're done. So we're gonna start with Dan.
I got a couple things. We can say something like, and again, this is all changeable. To be a world-class organization of police oversight, acting as a catalyst for accountability and positive change. Georges County law.
Very nice, very nice.
We could also say be the lead oversight organization or something like that. However we want to couch it at the beginning. That's simple vision statement, simple.
Short and sweet. Okay, Mr. James, are you ready, or are you still?
No, I'm still, I need more time on my SAT.
Try to buy you time with options.
Yeah.
I don't have a suggestion, I just want to know, can I collect those papers?
I am gonna have it,
Okay.
yeah, after, but I want people to hear. Ms. O'Neill,
I agree with him a little bit, but I put safer community along
can
with,
you talk up a little so they can make sure they?
vision is a safer community along with citizen believing that the board will hold public safety accountable.
So I had building community trust in policing, accountability from the police and the public by involving the community.
All right.
I'm
Mr.
gonna
Chair.
be like Mr. James, I'll come back.
I'm gonna give a pass when we come back around.
My number 2 pencil wasn't working.
Your turn.
So I basically said, being a relationship builder, going between our local law enforcement agencies and our government officials, and just helping the community understand and feel safe in the work that we do. It was less explicitly a statement and more kind of
Points, okay. Ms. Ridley?
Oh, no. You don't wanna hear what I wrote.
I did.
I was just saying.
Now I want to hear it even more.
Now we're curious.
I wrote, know before you go. What to do before coming to the police to obtain information.
Very good.
So, I'm just gonna say that,
I just don't know, so you can get it to me. I'm listening, I'm sorry.
so mine's kind of really simple in comparison to others. I just put the mission of the PAB is to provide transparency, equity, communication, and efficiency to the residents of Prince George's County with regards to law enforcement agencies.
That's good, very simple. Mel?
All right, to provide transparent and effective service to improve police accountability, resulting in a safer county for all its residents.
So what I'm gonna do, because I know if we start wordsmithing tonight, it might be 10, so can you pass it? Can, whatever you wrote, write it on this page. We're gonna give it to staff. They're gonna write them, send it out to you all, and then you all can try to put something together, send it back to staff, and then see if we can get one vision statement based on what you all wrote, okay? But you'll get all of them, and then make a decision, okay? All right, so I'll give you 2 minutes to write it on your separate sheet of paper for Ms. Denise. No, 'cause that you're gonna keep. Yeah. Denise, when will you be able to get it out to them?
When are they required to send it back?
Okay.
I mean, once I have them all, at the point that I have collected them all, I can send them immediately.
Okay, well, if you can send it out to them tomorrow, just all the individual comments. So you all will have, what's today, Wednesday? Can we ask that you have your, to look at all of them and then make a vision statement by Monday? Is Monday enough time for everybody? Yes. Okay, to send back to Denise? Okay.
What I'm doing is I'm gonna collect these, turn it into, an electronic document, and send each of you all of the comments, and they're gonna be making their recommendations for the vision statement from those comments.
Yes. Are you all okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Got 1 minute. Ms. Writing. You didn't put yours on there?
Oh, on your
On the-
feet, oh.
So that she can have it.
And please put your name on top of it.
I'm gonna take all of
Oh, we
them
gotta take credit.
and send it back to you.
Oh,
You're
okay.
I
keeping
thought it was gonna be
this.
anonymous.
Oh, I'm keeping this.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
That's why I want you to write it, because you're gonna be writing your stuff on it.
Okay.
Okay.
Definitely gonna be like passerby.
Own it, own it.
You'll have to excuse the handwriting.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, they won't say, who is that?
Yeah.
No, my,
That's it, she's like, he just wants to judge me by my handwriting.
no, trust me, I'm the worst. I got TV over there, don't worry about it.
Do I have everyone?
Not yet, we got 1 more minute.
No, you don't,
Okay.
but
We can
but
move
you
on. Go ahead.
no, we wanna, everybody be together. Like I said, I hope that we can just finish once and keep going. You see all those empty slots y'all got to fill. All right, wait, hold on, so you can take March.
Oh, I'll be Mark.
No. Okay, thank you. The next one we'll move to is the mission. The mission that you see was, the underlined is what was included in the guidance. The underlined what was suggested by Dr. Coleman. And I'll just read it out because the stream doesn't. To work with law enforcement agencies and county government in Prince George's County to improve relationships with the police. And I will just mention that in the survey, some of you said, yes, you were fine with it as original. And then she added that verbiage.
Maybe law enforcement agencies or something, I don't know what necessarily.
The original one was to work with law enforcement to improve, I think, policing. I think that was the original one. This one is to work with law enforcement agencies and county government in Prince George's County to improve relationships with police.
Now, I would have a preference about it saying policing,
Okay.
because the way it reads currently is as if we are trying to improve our relationship with police, which is a little inaccurate, so.
I would say relationship between police and the general public.
Yeah,
And to improve policing, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
I think we're trying to do both things.
right.
Help that relationship, but also improve.
Okay, so let's break it down. So, are you all okay with to work with law enforcement agencies and county government in Prince George's County?
Yep.
Y'all okay with
I
that?
think
Well,
actually,
I would add community in there to start it out,
Yeah.
to work with the community and law enforcement. I,
To work with, okay, community, the community, Mr. J?
Yeah.
I gotta hear it all the way out, but that may
Okay.
be it.
Yeah.
To work with the community, law enforcement agencies, and county government in Prince George's County?
Yep.
Yeah, I
That
like
sounds
that.
good.
I think if we just say Prince George's County government, I think saying county government in Prince George's County is just kind of redundant. Is it to work with community and law enforcement agencies in Prince George's County government
Good
to
point.
improve?
Yeah.
So what do you want, to work with the community, law enforcement agencies, and the Prince George's County government,
Yeah.
and the Prince George's County government. Okay, now tell me, y'all had some changes in the second part. Can you tell me what those were?
To improve policing,
To improve policing
right, and relationships with, or between rather,
And the relationship, maybe.
There you go.
and the
Relationship.
relationship.
between police and community members or something.
Wait a minute, no, y'all gotta give it to me the way you want it. So, okay,
How did you say
Let's
Mr. Melvin?
wordsmith it.
You said it.
yeah, we're gonna
Yeah.
wordsmith it
What
right
is
here.
it?
Okay. So it's, so far it says, to work with the community, law enforcement agencies and the Prince George's County government to improve policing and the relationship,
Between
With the
law
community.
enforcement and the community. So that it doesn't say policing and police,
Yeah.
say,
Right.
just change it to policing and law enforcement.
okay. And law. I'm gonna read it again, 'cause
Okay.
so now I have it saying, to work with the community, law enforcement agencies, and the Prince George's County government to improve policing and law enforcement.
I'm
What
sorry,
y'all-
I apologize.
Huh?
No,
I think you meant
The-
policing and the relationship
Oh,
yeah.
between law enforcement and,
and the
Community.
relationship between law enforcement and the community?
Correct.
Okay.
the handoff also.
Okay, one second.
I have 1 minute.
Okay. I'm gonna read it one more time before you add on. So what I have now is to work with the community, law enforcement agencies, and the Prince George's County government to improve policing and the relationship between law enforcement and the community.
I'm wondering if, by including the relationship between law enforcement, in some way, and maybe this is a semantic difference, maybe it's just the way I'm reading into it, are we in some way taking on the mission of the relationship between law enforcement? And are we separating those as two entities? They're one and the same. Law enforcement is part of our community, and the community is represented in law. I'm wondering if, it may seem like a semantic difference, but
But it's important that you bring it up so y'all can
I
talk
mentioned
about
this to say that these are some ideas in the national discussion of how we phrase this. We certainly want to improve policing, I like that, and I like the law enforcement and so forth. But I wonder if we want to take on the relationship between those two, and do we want to separate those?
Well, that makes a good point, because you don't want the police officers to feel like we're saying.
There's a lot of us
Mentality,
discussion as it
I
is,
get that, yeah.
and we're trying to narrow that gap in many ways,
Right.
which I think is important.
So
We're trying to
change
do
it to say like the general public or the public.
that. Or even if we just say to improve policing.
and not,
We don't have to be
not do the latter.
responsible for the relationship between, now, that may be how we do it, is by outreach and some of those other things.
So
But if it's in our mission statement, we, in some ways, and again, maybe this is just me, if you guys don't like it, that's okay. Or another, in some ways, we're then taking on responsibility for that relationship.
So, if I understand Danny, then it would just be to work with the community and law enforcement agencies and the Prince George's County government to improve policing.
Yeah.
Period.
I personally disagree a little bit.
Okay.
I do like the explicit mention of the community, because I think, I mean, the name of our board is Police Accountability, and is accountable to who? And I think that inherently this work does, we do have to take on, to an extent, maybe not necessarily us being the sole person responsible or body responsible for, but, I mean, part of the guidelines and outlines that we've seen, I think, in the state bill language and in the county bill language has been a certain requirement for community engagement. And so I think that lens is there intentionally, and I very much see your point, and I do think it's an important conversation that I'm glad we're having it, but I do think the explicit mention of the community is important, because, you know, these bills got passed for a reason. You know, there is a divide, and there is a us and them, and I don't think we shy away from it. I think we say, yes, us and them, but we're also saying we're here to make it us, and I think that comes across.
What if we said policing in the community? Would that address your point, or not so much?
I think policing in the community, the whole, so ending it and improve policing in the community.
Sir James had something.
Yeah, please.
So two great points. I'm concerned about the relationship piece too. That was one of the things I thought about. And the other is, I think we're missing accountability, right? You just said the Police Accountability Board, and I was like, wow, that word accountability is not even in the mission. Like, you gotta figure out how to put accountability in there, and it may be to improve policing accountability, or some form of fashion there, because I don't know if we can own the relationship, which I think is what you may be saying, is if
So would
we
y'all,
own that.
so to improve police accountability, or you saying something different? Just wanna make
I
sure.
think, yeah, I like that, actually. I like what you just said, because Daniel's right. The reason that this was created was because there was a public need, so maybe it's to improve policing and policing accountability to the public, or to the community. Because that's who are they accountable to. We don't want to improve accountability to us, or to the county agencies, or to their own agency. We want to improve their accountability to the actual community that they serve, right?
And also the community members too.
Of course.
Can you read it then again, because I see it.
Okay, so, to work with the community, law enforcement agencies, and the Prince George's County government to improve policing, and I wasn't sure what that last piece was, and we're taking out relationships. Everybody's in wants to take relationship out, and so we stopped at and.
Dot.
Right.
So work,
Accountability.
so to work with the community, for that to be kind of drawn out in the beginning, I think that kind of implies that the community engagement and involvement is part of our mission.
Right.
So I don't think we have to kind of double down on it at the end. I think we just have to determine and finalize how we want to end it about the police portion.
And we want the word accountability in there.
Yeah, I think if we say policing or police accountability, I'm kind of indifferent about either or, but I don't think we got to do much more than that.
Let me ponder a question. Policing is what they do, right? The accountability is kind of how they interface with the public.
Right.
Could you put policing and police accountability, or is that still too much?
I wonder if that's
Redundant.
too much, and so,
I know.
I like the idea of accountability. I wonder if it's inferred, though, and here's what I mean by that, is that if we're improving policing, part of that could be improving the accountability, but the accountability that we do, where that's in our legal sort of requirement, is really serves the purpose of improving policing within the community.
And if it's
And I
one of
mentioned
our
that to say that,
strategic pillars.
Did anybody put police accountability in the vision at all? Was it in anybody's?
I don't think that.
I did.
You did?
It's also strategic.
In the
guiding
guiding principle.
So accountability is already a guiding principle.
I think it's gonna be in the document of law.
Yeah.
And I
It's
think,
the objective and the goal that says police accountability.
Right, I mean, I think it's gonna be in there a lot, but I don't wanna, if there's a different way that you wanna phrase it.
It is.
I wanna include,
You gonna say something, Snow?
well, I was just gonna say, I think there's so much intersection and overlap between policing and police accountability. Police accountability, heightened police accountability creates better policing. If you say policing, it's such a big umbrella that it captures accountability. So it's really, I think, at this point, a preference of this board of what we feel more comfortable having in there.
I think police accountability is one of the many means to.
Yeah, and I also, to that point, think that there's a scope to which we should just be okay with. That's the scope of what we do, right? Like, there's a certain point where we're gonna have some affect on the community, but that's not our primary goal. The police themselves have a responsibility to worry about their relationship and things like that too. So I think there's a start and end to sort of where we're responsible, and so I think it's okay if we don't have a catch-all.
Right.
So I'm gonna read this one,
I'm sorry.
and then, I mean, that's what this is, it's a work session, that's what we're supposed to be doing. So I'm just ending it, if I heard, to work with the community law enforcement agencies, the Prince George's County, got it in my mind, the Prince George's County government to improve policing, period.
Like, the two options that we've come to so far are policing or police accountability in that last phrase. Maybe we just vote on it and then stick with whatever majority rules. If we have come down to those, that would what the comments sound like to me, so I don't know how we're feeling blanketly.
Hi, there's a seat right there. Mr. Ron, it's okay. You're perfectly on time. Wait a minute, that's not it. Okay, if you all want to, and, you know, once we get down to these objectives and goals, it may inform, but I want to at least start with something. So the two would be policing or police accountability, okay? Those are the two choices. So I'll start with, and if you just raise your hand, knowing that if, as we go down, we need to revisit, we can. All right, how many for police?
I'm sorry, before we do that, can you read with both so I can hear it,
Yes,
please?
okay. So, to work with the community, law enforcement agencies, and the Prince George's County government to improve policing, period. To work with the community, law enforcement agencies, and the Prince George's County government to improve police accountability.
I'm gonna throw out one other option.
You absolutely can.
Just taking the preface to improve transparency, accountability, and equity in policing. I think we're covering several different areas.
Wait, to go, to improve,
To improve transparency, accountability.
wait a minute, you know,
Okay.
I ain't fast. And transparency,
Accountability,
accountability,
and equity in policing.
and I'm gonna read this one.
I like that, what do you mean by it?
Yeah, I was
Well,
gonna ask that too.
So what I started to think about was, okay, there's some discipline aspects to this that go to it, and we want to make sure that there's equity in that discipline. That goes towards the policing. So I was trying to touch on several different aspects of our responsibility area, so that's what it was for.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna read it with that one. To work with the community, law enforcement agencies, and the Prince George's County government to improve transparency, accountability, and equity in policing.
Like it. Yeah, and there was one more.
No, that was, the other one was in policing.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Okay.
So if I can, that last one, if I could get some hands up or the hands down,
That's unanimous.
I think we got unanimous. Very good. I just wanna say, again, y'all should be really pleased with yourself, because I've been with groups 6 months and they still trying to figure out a mission. You know what I mean? And the fact that you all were able to kind of wordsmith it that quickly is a tribute to all of you, okay? And we can revisit when we finish that, and you might see something as we go. All right. And I'm gonna write on my sheet that everybody will have the vision back on Monday. Denise, what date is that?
Well, I can get this to them.
No, I'm not talking about what you're doing, I'm talking about what they're getting back to us.
No.
Monday. Yeah, not you, them.
That's the,
Like back.
Well, I know, I was just saying, I was letting you know, I'm getting this to
Yeah.
them tomorrow.
Yeah,
that'll be the
But we get
27th.
it back to Denise by close of business Monday.
yeah. COB, March 27th, okay? And let me just say, it's really, really important that we stick with these timelines so that we can move to the next phase of, community outreach. Is gonna take a minute as well, okay? All right, so now we're on goals, objectives, milestones, and I put key in there because when I sent the survey out the first time, all I put measures. I didn't know if you wanted to add the word key or not, so can you all,
I think it's,
sorry, I'm being so.
I don't think it's needed.
Uh,
I don't think it's needed.
okay, so is that, everybody doesn't wanna see key? Okay,
I mean, you're not including
okay,
non-key ones, right?
you know
No,
what?
I'm not being.
No, I don't know.
I'm being-
I've seen it both because in some strategic plans,
Uh-huh.
there will be additional measures, but the only thing included in the strategic plan are those key ones, and they're highlighted, which is why you see the word key sometimes, to know that there might be other measures, but the ones inside of here were the priorities of measurements, that's why you use that word. But if you all want it out, it's out. Okay. So, in this one, what we did was, you'll see in parentheses, the numbers. Those numbers are based on the responses to the survey. So everybody gave me somewhere between 3 to 5 on the goals. They gave 1 to 10 on the objectives. They gave 3 to 10 on the milestones. And we didn't ask them, so we didn't get it, so we just put 3. But you're welcome to do more if that's what you want. Also, as we look at these goals, we took these out of the guidance, strategic plan. And I know the first one is gonna be a little confusing, and I'll explain why. That in the guidance, it talks about collaboration, between the PAB and law enforcement agency heads. One of the discussions we had, and then we put interface. And so what I wanted to ask you all was the level of that interaction, right? Collaboration is a lot more significant than just interfacing. And I don't know what level you think as a goal you want. So if you all could kind of talk to me about that, and which words reflect the goal that you want as it relates to agency heads. And on each one of these, if you want to say it differently, not a problem, we just took it from the guide.
How much time we got, Marcia?
Oh, you tell me now, talk to me,
You talking about the milestones right here?
No, I'm talking about goal 1.
I mean, so, I guess I'll throw the first opinion out there. I think it's collaboration, because for me, the police heads, we're talking about the chiefs of all these departments, right? And those are the people that we expect to implement recommendations that we're gonna be making. The general police, the police officers, I think that's an interface, because I don't think we're gonna be collaborating as much with them. But I think the chiefs, our expectation will be, if we make recommendations around hiring, around promotions, around, policies and standard procedures that they have, our expectation will be that they'll collaborate with us to make those changes, right? So I think, for me, collaboration is probably the level that I see us with agency heads.
Okay. Others? Okay. So are you all or collaboration between, whichever one, but collaborate, collaboration between PAB and law enforcement agency heads as goal number 1. Are we all right with that one?
I think I'd just like to, I agree very much, and again, we can take it or leave it, but I think, I might think interface or something, synonymous to might be a little bit more appropriate because, while we do need, they do have a role to fill in this and we will be working closely with them, I think, when we're providing recommendations to these folks or, where recommendations go, I think our role does imply a bit of oversight. So I think that collaboration maybe implies we are working 50-50 at doing this and taking everything you're saying into consideration when I think our relationship might be more hearing input and getting insight into their practices and their decision-making already, and then we provide our recommendations versus a more direct 50-50 in terms of contribution relationship. That makes sense.
I like the word collaboration because it implies that you're going to work along with them. Because if you make a policy, and even if they're stubborn and resistant, it doesn't have the same effect. So collaboration means, okay, this is what we've seen. This is the policy we'd like to see changed. Tell us how you're going to implement that. Tell us how you can do that willingly. So our goal is to collaborate with them, in my view. So I think that's my point of view.
Mr. Melton?
Yeah, I was just gonna add, the other way I looked at it is that there might be things that we really don't understand where they can offer that understanding and perspective to us so that it might affect some of the suggestions that we're offering could be coming from a vantage point that they can offer some insights.
Right.
And so that give and take kind of leans into collaboration. The officers are working so much overtime. The statistics are showing they got this amount of overtime. The policy doesn't give us room to do and account for that. So those type of dynamics, I think, help just kind of clarify that. I think it will be a little bit more collaborative.
Yeah.
Well, I think, does anybody else have any views?
Just to add to that, there you go.
No, but also, if we also want them to be able to take some of our ideas. If they keep on saying they can't stop overtime, we're gonna hear this at every meeting. I'm gonna give you something simple. It's just like if we say, well, what about your procurement? Y'all, new order of cars is electric cars. You still ordering gas cars. The average car, police cars, they stop somewhere, they say 15, 20-minute cars never cut off. Got electric. What are you doing to get electric cars? If we just listen to them and they don't take none of our ideas, because we are also supposed to be here giving them trims of things that we see.
Right.
They ain't the only one in the community. We're in the community too. So they just can't say, well, we do this because of this. You know what I mean?
Right, but I think that's what the definition of the word collaboration is, to do that. So we're looking at both sides. I like the way you put it, Mr. Melton, that they will be able to provide some insights, some things that may lead to us understanding, and then coming up with suggestions for that. So I like that guidance.
Anybody else with a thought on the choice of words before we take
I was just gonna, talk about this, the idea of electric cars. It could be that there's not enough electric charging stations that they can use. I'm saying, so they would need to give us that information, so I agree with you.
Being at for those of you that went to the Police Chiefs Association, right? You walk into the room and you realize we're talking about 23 municipalities plus the University of Maryland and a couple of universities. So we may have broad policy recommendations, and then we've got to go to a three-man municipality and say, can you even implement this? And how long will you need? And so we're going to have to adjust because, we know how much the county police will have as their budget, but what about Morningside? What's their budget? right? How many officers do they have? And if we give them
A mandate.
a mandate,
Right.
maybe they need 3 years or 4 years, so we have to build that into our recommendations.
So what language would you recommend then for the goal?
I mean, I think collaboration is, we gotta work with it, we gotta,
I'm just asking, does that represent ideas that you're talking about?
because I think that's us saying, here's what we see that we need to do that will help you improve your policing in your community. And if they come back and they can provide us with information and say, look, here's why this would be really difficult for us. Okay, well, how can we achieve this goal? We're working together to achieve the goal. Because I think recommendations just coming from us, if they can't implement them, then they're useless.
Right.
But then this is also just goal one about the interaction,
Right,
right?
yeah.
We can have another goal about recommendations, like,
Right.
And that was just, I was just talking about the larger, not the smaller ones,
Right.
when I was talking about that.
I like collaboration.
So if I can get a hand on who wants the word collaboration, number one. Okay, I think that's the majority.
Okay, yes.
And what I'm gonna do, I know we have the objectives, but if it's okay, I'm gonna go through each of the goals, so you'll know where we are.
I have a question about the goals. Is this goal in reference to the short or long or both?
This is, we're working on the short term, and these may, if you notice, I kept the April 1 date even for the long term, so all it's gonna do is extend it out. Unless they're with that subcommittee, you decide there's some goals you don't wanna see, but we'll have that discussion when you have that subcommittee. Okay, goal 2 is on page 4. And is improve responsiveness to public complaints of misconduct. Any views on that? Any disagreement on that? Any change
is that
on
for
that?
us or for law
Uh,
enforcement?
Yeah.
Okay, tell me, Mr. Mel.
I was just gonna say, maybe, be more specific about whether the responsiveness is related to us or law enforcement.
Misconduct of, we have two.
That was the question I had.
Question to you.
Yeah.
No, this is, I took this from the guidance.
No, he's asking you a question.
No,
No.
I was just saying, we should add more detail. We should decide what we're trying to say.
Right.
So
Yeah.
add it. Give a suggestion.
Kenan, you was gonna say something real
So
quick?
that's,
while
while I was
think
reading
about
it, I was thinking how we execute that, right? We set it as a goal, but I don't know if we, as this body, can improve responsiveness to public complaints and misconduct. Like, the complaints come to the board now, right? And then they go to the agencies. How do we improve responsiveness? And that's what I was just kind of wrestling with was, how do we improve that?
Let me give you one example of a maybe. It goes, and we're gonna talk about this, the chair talked about, some processes that we're gonna have to deal with as between the ACC, but that might even be when the process of how you even handle the complaints themselves, that the overall process will improve it. So it may be the process and not what they do, your ability to respond to it.
I mean, ours or theirs?
No, creating processes that when somebody makes a complaint, when you all do those recommendations, after looking at trends, and you say, we think you need to do A, B, and C to make sure you're more responsive, improving the process.
So-
I think that's what
I think if I understand it, it's almost as if I have to add the word improve processes for responsiveness too, because I don't think we can improve responsiveness to public complaints of misconduct.
But,
So,
let me start with Mr. Melton, because you wanted to add a
Well,
word.
with that clarification, I think it actually is fine
Okay. So,
if, in general,
okay.
we're trying to improve responsiveness.
Okay,
Then we
Mr.
can begin to get objectives that identify
Okay.
our role,
And
law
they're right.
enforcement's role, and whatever else,
Okay.
whoever plays a part in that.
Okay, so Mr. James, did I hear you improve processes for,
No.
you go ahead and read it.
No, I think I think right now, that will go later on. So right now, it would stay as the goal for improved responsiveness to public complaints of misconduct.
So we're okay with
Leave
it?
it like that.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. I need hands. Thank you. We are on goal 3, which is on page 6. Improve police accountability. Responses?
I was just trying to figure out how to narrow it down so it could reach the goal.
And you
But I
probably
wasn't
will
sure.
with the objectives, we hope, so.
Okay.
This might be too broad. Like our other goals are kind of specific or point to a particular aspect of accountability or policing that we're talking about, right? Like responding to complaints, collaboration with agency heads, it's like a specific avenue of our work. Improve police accountability is like the point of the whole thing. Like I feel like that's more, wouldn't that just be in our mission or in our vision or something? Like I don't see how that's a goal we measure without doing the entire rest of the work that we're here to do.
I like improved police accountability. It's something that the public can see, and they'll be drawn to that. You know, right to that, say, okay, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, let's look at it,
Danny?
Oh, I'm sorry, Dan.
You go.
Ms. Bryant, Ms. Danny, Ms. Bryant?
So here's the issue. The issue is accountability is perceived to be lacking in our county. So what we're trying to do is to, in fact, increase or improve accountability and also notify the public that there is accountability. So as a goal, I think that that's good. We just need to have objectives
Right.
that reflect what it is that we're doing.
What it means.
Right.
Other thoughts, Danny, and then
sorry.
Carla.
To me, this is a little broad, and to me, it reflects more of reflects a little bit more of our vision or our mission. And I wonder if we could instead say something like improve policing processes and practices.
But I don't know that that gets you to the broader question of accountability. You could have great processes and still not be accountable. So,
I just took a quick look at accountability to make sure I'm kind of thinking about it from the definition, right? And so it really just speaks to having someone take responsibility for their actions, right? So if we're saying we want to improve police effectively doing that, I think about objectives that we would then sort of begin to put within the scope of this goal that would go towards that. So I think it sounds extremely broad when you read it, but I think if we think about it that way, it seems doable as a goal. Like, I think there's a number of objectives that will fall in alignment. And I think over time, you know, it can be sort of a living thing. You can have new goals that work towards that. I think we can get specific, but I think we can reserve that for the objectives.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
any other comments before we vote on this one?
Yeah, I think, like, I agree that we want, like, yes, this is the goal we're trying to work towards, and, like, this is, yeah, I'm just saying I don't think it goes here. I think if we look to the two other goals that we have, collaboration with law enforcement and agency heads, that is one of the things that we're saying doing this improves police accountability. And then when we look at improved responsiveness to public complaints of misconduct, that is a tool that we're saying works to improve police accountability. So in our third goal to just be improve police accountability, I don't think it tracks with the other goals that we've set. And I think that we have to provide a specific, not like hyper-specific, but like some kind of something or metric or something that we're saying this is an aspect of accountability that we're trying to improve that hits the larger piece.
Yeah.
Because I think, to your point, right, I think in our vision and in our, like, this goal is like the biggest, like, is us, is the big idea.
Are there any ideas about any of the facets of police accountability that deserve more attention than others? So, like, do we make this about improving the disciplinary process? Like, do we just specify something like that?
Yeah, but here's the thing, is that what we address and what we look at is gonna change over time. So a lot of, I think,
True.
what we're charged with is to look at practices and policies on an ongoing basis, whatever those are, and different issues.
Yeah.
Right? And that if we address those things, that improves the accountability, it improves policing, and therefore we are there holding, there is some civilian oversight and civilian accountability of the police department through that process.
Right.
And so I like the idea of how you phrased it, of that, you know, holding the accountability as a goal, that's us, that's the big thing, that's the whole piece of.
So let me ask you a question, because I wanna make sure I'm clear. I think, Mr. Miller, you talked about it, that the goal of accountability, and then as long as those objectives speak to how you get to that accountability.
Right.
And it's very clear in the objectives, or are you still trying to narrow the goal?
I was just asking the board, because I wanted to sort of speak to some of his point, because I feel like if you do break it out, have more goals, but,
Yeah.
they can just be
And
objectives.
you all said you wanted 5. Let me do this, see where we are, and then if we don't have the votes for this, then we'll keep talking about, how about that?
Or can I say something really quick?
Absolutely.
I just wanted to say that we are getting hung up on accountability. Yes, that's a part of what we do, but it's gonna be also in our goals and different things that we do. We don't wanna get hung up on the fact that, yes, we're the police accountability board, but the fact that it's a goal, we can still do that and use that in other things. I think we're getting hung up on just semantics of what we're trying to do. So, that was just my comment, so, okay.
I appreciate it. So let's take a vote on this one. Hands on who wants it as the way it's stated now.
1, 2, 3, 5, 6.
Who does not?
1.
I think the majority
Yes.
will keep it. And again, this is going to, I know we're gonna come back, and as you go through it and see the other goals, it may change when you see the whole document and say, ooh, maybe, I don't know, but this is gonna be a organically evolving document, if that's okay with you all. So we're on number 4.
15.
Number 4. Ensure transparency and keep public informed about policing matters. Yeah, on page 8. Thoughts, please?
So,
Yes,
I'll
sir.
jump out there. I'm always leery of the word of ensure unless I am personally responsible and I can do it. So anytime I see ensure, I'm gonna strike it. So I can go with increase transparency and maintain public information about policing matters, as a potential way to try to get there, but.
So let me ask the other one, the first one. Would you be okay with the word promote transparency?
That's fine, I just can't, unless it's on me alone, I can't
How do you
ensure.
all feel?
So, promote
Are
transparency.
you all okay with that word?
Okay.
And let me go to, and it's a question, and then we'll come back. The one about, this one really was about our responsibility to get information out to the community.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
I mean,
you
we
wanna
are
change your
responsible.
Yeah,
We
that's
are-
true.
we are actually the group that will do, that is responsible for this
So you're
transparency.
saying we can't ensure that we.
Yeah, we can't,
Yeah, we
that's
can
our
ensure
job,
the group.
because what happens is, these complaints will go to the agencies, get investigated, go to the targeting committee, that decision is made, the officer then can go either to the hearing board to have that finally disposed, or accept what the targeting committee says. Those decisions then come to us, and it is our job to then make sure that we make that a transparent process at the end to show, right? That's,
But what about the complaints that an agency doesn't submit?
Yes.
Because we can't control that. They decide they're not gonna submit it.
Well, go say that a little bit, because we've been having some
Mm-hmm.
conversations
I'm
about that,
already
let's
with
go.
Okay.
Say that was good,
Go it again.
So it's my understanding that law enforcement agencies are responsible for submitting the complaints that they receive. If we get them ourselves, we control the whole process. If they get it and they don't
Not
submit it
today,
to us,
go.
I think that, I guess, again, makes us vulnerable to not being able to ensure there's transparency about that.
Well, let me just say, at the risk of, because we haven't had the conversation, one of the things that you all are gonna be talking about is that process of transmittal. And we have some, I think, ideas about making sure that whatever complaint comes in, whether it comes to PAB, law enforcement, that there is a way that there's a central database that we all know it,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And it's not because you've transmitted, but there's something where if you get it, it goes somewhere, and everybody in those groups has, so that is gonna be a conversation, because
Okay.
when you look at, and we weren't gonna talk about, but I think it's important, because when we start talking about that you all have investigatory powers, how can you investigate something you don't know about?
Right.
So one of the things we really wanna move down that road is how you get to that place. So I know that's gonna be
Okay.
a big thing for you all to do your job.
Mr. O'Neill, I'm sorry, Mr. Burgley, he had his hand, okay.
The two of them,
You first, all right, so the statute doesn't require them to do it, so how would we go about developing some kind of?
Well, it does, because it talks about transmission after investigations too. And so it does, there's some language that we're actually kind of looking at, which talks about, where's the piece that I gave you? Sorry. You have it. I think it's this one. I got it, I think I got it. So there's a section in it that says, on a quarterly basis, review disciplinary outcomes of disciplinary matters resulting from both internal and external complaints. The board, you all, shall be entitled to all evidence considered by the law enforcement agency and the administrative charging committee upon completion of an investigation. So there's authority inside of the statute of what you as the board are entitled to receive.
So what, would we have to collaborate again with the internal investigation aspect of each police department? Because does the chief get to have all of that?
So as we look at some of the language, and we've been struggling with this, there's some gaps in direction.
Yeah.
And so what our hope is that we'll start to have those conversations with our new IG, our new, I had to look that way, but, ACC and PAB, to try to find that we can not only with the letter of, but the spirit of it. So that'll be a collaboration with the other groups.
I also am leery of the word ensure. And I say that because when you start getting into metrics, then by blanketing with ensure, you leave yourself very little room for metrics. It's all or you didn't do it. Yeah. And that's the same thing when you start keeping it in a broad sense about policing matters. It's all, then a lot falls under that umbrella about all policing matters. I guess I'm wondering what, I like the idea of promoting transparency, and I like the idea of, but I'm leery of, goes back to my multiple choice test days, you know, from college, where when you start going with all and, you know, any, and all those things, you know, that's an answer to avoid. So it's, when we're talking about ensure and keep, not specifying which public matters we're not more clear on that. I know it's a goal, I know it's meant to be overarching. I'm wondering if there's a place that is.
Let me separate them out, Danny.
Okay.
Let's start with, are people comfortable with promoting transparency, just that piece of it?
I like that.
Are you unhappy with that?
Could, flip it too.
What's that?
To say, inform the public about policing matters and promote transparency.
Yeah, you know, you have to use.
Oh, okay.
So what, say it again, Mr. Miller?
Inform the public about
No,
policing.
no. Sorry.
Use that microphone right there.
I know, you know that, whatever that is called. Inform the public, go ahead.
About policing matters.
About policing matters
And promote transparency.
and promote.
I vote aye.
And to James' point, are we talking about complaints with that, if we had the word complaints, or are we just, is it all policing matters?
That depends on what you put in the objective.
Yes, I'm saying, like, so are we just saying, general, is it for the general goal of, the complaints, or just general, like, all policing?
You may get to, I think what Danny said is, once you get to the objectives, you might, complaints might be it might be the annual report is something that talks about trends. There are a lot of different ways that you can keep them informed.
The outline and objectives.
Yeah.
I'm curious though, like, are we obligated to inform the public about anything other than, like, the conduct and the, like, conduct or misconduct cases that we'd be looking at? Like, when we talk about the policing matters in our purview, aren't we talking about conduct and misconduct almost exclusively? When we say policing matters, like, then what other matters?
Policy changes.
Yeah, policy that we.
Oh, okay, there you go, okay, yeah, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it can be much broader, because you're
Gotcha.
talking about best
Yeah,
practices,
okay.
trends.
Training.
You might be talking about training, you might be talking about technology, anything that, our favorite word, that leads to better police accountability.
Thank you guys, appreciate the clarification.
So, hands for four as inform the public about policing matters and promote transparency. Ms. O'Neill, you want?
I'm just trying to get around matters, that's the piece that I'm trying to get to, but that's fine.
How about policing, and take off the
I was
word
trying to think
matters?
if that was it, or if it was policing practices, or what it was, but that can go later,
Yeah.
but, I'm
I think
fine
we
with
can
it.
better define it with the objectives, yeah.
Which one are we doing, keeping matters, or we?
I like the way.
Okay, all right.
So we're gonna
Hands not, okay, all right. We're on the last one, and number 5, now,
Put like a note next to that when you send it out, like you would say, if we think of another word or something.
well,
suggest it
no,
or
no,
not.
yeah, when we come back to it, after we come, we're gonna keep coming. If some of you come up, you have an epiphany when you get home tonight,
Right.
and you are looking at this and you say, oh, dang, I should have said that. Please share it with us, because we want this to be something that you all feel like it's your best thing, so. And on this last one, by way of reflection, we created this goal because there was objectives about training. So we needed a goal to take it, to undergird it. So, ensure PAB staff and consultants have requisite understanding, knowledge, skills, and processes necessary to perform civilian oversight of law enforcement agencies and law enforcement officers. I know that's a mouthful, but, so, do with it what you may.
I like it the way it is. My only question would be, my other thing would be either keep it or take it out entirely. Because I wonder if, like, ensuring staff training, like, is that our responsibility to train ourselves, or is that more of like, the county appointed us and approved our appointments, so like, they vetted us to an extent, right? Like, is that kind of their job, or do we still consider that our responsibility in terms
To
of
do a
personal
training, like the shoot, don't shoot, so we are supposed, and then there was training that we could go through the commission.
Yeah.
And some other things that we will take, you all will take,
Right?
responsibility.
That being the case, and I like it how it is. Maybe that ensure word out front, though, we don't like too much, but otherwise.
We're gonna take that out of our lexicon, ensure. Okay, well, y'all
I'm
can.
gonna go to Mr. Melton, because he's saying, I like, he's been on point.
The only thing I'm wrestling with is, we got like 4 different words: understanding, knowledge, skills, and processes. So I was kind of wondering if we needed all of those.
Probably don't, we put them all in there,
Yeah,
so y'all can look and see what, if any, captured what you were trying to get to, so, again, no pride of authorship on this, it was just, giving you choices.
I like
You
that,
know,
right?
we got picked,
I like that one.
so they, some of this stuff they do.
Yeah, like understanding, right? Like understanding's the thing that we either have it or we don't.
So you wanna strike that one?
Go ahead, Mr. James has a suggestion.
So I would consider equip PAB staff and consultants with knowledge, skills, and processes necessary to perform civilian oversight of law enforcement agencies. I would strike it at that point.
Yeah.
Because we introduced law officers.
No, he didn't say too much.
Okay.
And I wanted to talk, we added the officers, because one, we were talking about the institution, and then the other one, we were talking about the individual police. So we were trying to find a way to address both, right? You might.
You read it again, Mr.
Sure. So I replaced ensure with equip, PAB staff and consultants with, my strike is have requisite understanding, that's a strike.
Okay.
So it would be with knowledge, skills, and processes necessary to perform civilian oversight of law enforcement agencies. And the only other question I have for me, or in general, is whether the word necessary, processes,
I
to
took that
perform.
out.
I would strike necessary.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna read it, and then people can react to it. Equip PAB staff and consultants with knowledge, skills, and processes to perform civilian oversight of law enforcement agencies.
How about competently?
Well, you might talk about that maybe in the
Okay.
objectives. Want to keep these as broad as.
I like ensure, I'm not crazy about equip, but it's semantics, I'm okay with either one. Like, if I could choose another word, I don't know what, so, so I'm good with it.
Okay, so this would be one on 5 if some word comes to you.
Yes.
Share it and then bring it back to the group if it doesn't hit you. Okay. No,
that's fine.
okay, can I get hands on that one?
Yep, that one.
In favor, right?
Okay, all right.
Marcia, you in favor of that one?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, here's what we're gonna do, if you'll give us a little more,
Yes, ma'am.
more time. I wanna go over at least the objectives that are listed, because they're not that many. Talk about them, and then you can take this home and look at it. And then also, you can start adding objectives, and we don't have to do it all together, okay? So let me start, and again, where you see objectives, we got them that was something in the mandatory, the discretionary, or the guidance, and that's why they're here. They may be written differently, and you all are free to change it. The first, under Goal 1, page 2, Goal 1, objectives, hold at least quarterly meetings with law enforcement heads. That's a statutory mandate. Does anybody have a problem with that? Okay. We divided it out, change it if you want. We came up with 2 police chief meetings in each fiscal year, and then at least where we go to them, to their meeting, and then 1 where we invite the chief here, and 1 where we invite the sheriff
What
here.
about the municipality?
Well, the police chief, that's the municipal.
Oh, each one?
All of them come to that chief's meeting.
Okay, so that would be our meeting.
That was the way we were gonna get to all of the municipalities.
Yeah, 'cause everybody-
And these 2 were, thought it was important. Anybody have a problem?
But in that meeting, those 2 chief meetings, I didn't go, but in those meetings, we are presenting to them, or are we gonna have exchange with them in those 2 police meetings? Those police chief meetings, how is that?
Last time we introduced ourselves, but I think that staff can work with the chiefs to say how we would wanna be on the agenda. Whether we wanna do a presentation, whether we wanna just be there to hear, that would be something we could work out collaboratively with the chief. What's his name?
How is this a president?
The president, yeah.
For instance, the state's attorney for Prince George's County gave a presentation. We would be able to, if I believe, if we ask to be on their agenda and talk about
But that
whatever.
wouldn't be the meeting where, only when we meet with the police chiefs is where we talk about trends and we give them ideas, because we couldn't do it at this police chief meeting.
You might be able to, yeah. I mean, depending, you would set the, work with them for the agenda.
Yeah, based off of what we get in the data and what we're doing, that might be something we want to discuss at that meeting while we have them there.
You might want to say, we've done an annual report, we'd like to share the findings in our annual report. I'm just using that as an example.
How many chiefs attend the meeting? How many is it?
30 of them?
Well, then I think to the point, like, that might be a setting that more we provide information and, like, I see your point, like, that's not necessarily a time we'll be able to sit back and go back and forth with 23, 30 different folks at once to have that, like, intentional conversation. So I see the concern you're raising, and I think I have a similar one.
Well, let me just say one thing about that. We got 27. Now, if you all want to meet every day, I mean, because you got other things to do. We were trying to find a way when you got 20-plus municipalities, make sure that you could get to them.
And it would stay consistent when we do.
That's really, it was a logistics issue.
I think if we see something that's alarming in a particular
Right.
jurisdiction, then we would have to meet with that guy,
Exactly.
separately.
Right.
But generally, we can present what happens and the trends and what we see and.
And make requests for information.
Exactly.
To them all,
Yeah.
in a board, in a unit, where you can have the president hold them accountable.
Right, and we can even say about what we were saying earlier about how we receive the information and things like that.
But Ms. Bryan, I think you make a good point. We could add a milestone
Yeah.
or as needed, if there's something to have, we could add that in.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only other thing we might wanna think about is that if by the 27th, maybe have 9 and 3 meetings, if we have 9 each at.
Speak up a little bit, they said they can't hear you.
9, we split those 27 up and have meetings with them.
Like in pockets.
Yeah,
Like
pockets.
3 members be responsible for these 3.
Well, no, I'm talking about chiefs, you mean?
Yeah, the chiefs, yeah.
You know, if it's Forest Heights, Morningside, something like that. Because you have to remember, in the last legislative session, some of these municipalities was trying to usurp our power.
Oh, yeah,
You know what I mean? Yeah,
have
yeah.
their own PAB.
Right.
Yeah, and we have to look at that, because if we just go to the general meeting, they say, well, they ain't doing nothing.
I don't know, I wanna be a little careful on those kind of wording of usurp and, whatever. I mean, I think what we're trying to get here is what gets us to that discussion. That exchange, right. And if that's a suggestion, split them, that's one thing, but let's just kind of high level on that.
Mr. James has something.
So my question is, are there association meetings, public meetings? Because I think if we're going to have a meeting with the chiefs related to the information that we're asking, collecting, or presenting, it needs to be in a public meeting setting. But I'm not confident that their meetings are public meetings.
I think anybody's able to come to the.
I don't know, I didn't see any kind of restriction.
I didn't see any restrictions. Do you know?
Again, it was a question, that's what I'm just saying.
Not public.
I don't think it is, but I don't know for sure. And that, to me, presents a
Not public.
logistical problem for us.
Yeah, but they're not public.
They're not.
Okay.
We were invited.
I really think our ability to accomplish a quarterly meeting with that many people, it's not that we can't do the things that have been raised concerns. It's the fact that this offers an alternative that's convenient when we need it. And so, we have the option to do other things if we have concerns, but I think just taking advantage, do we wanna, commit to 2? That could be on the table, but I think that seems reasonable to me, to be able to just say, hey, look, we got them all in the same room.
I'm sorry. Brian, go ahead.
So I agree with what you're saying, and, not only that, but when we're what we can get to with what you're trying to achieve is through the community engagement.
Right.
Because that's another thing we have to do.
Right.
So it's like, we would be stretched very thin to try and meet these 3 people at once. That's like, whoa, unless you wanna take this on as a full-time job.
Right.
One of the
lot.
things we are
It's a lot.
looking, I've asked staff to do, is given the numbers y'all are talking about, we're gonna put together a chart that shows you, if you do all the ones you're talking about, how many you might have, so that you can see it visually.
Yeah.
You know, and then you might say, oh, okay, we can do even more, or Ms. O'Neill, you talked about splitting up, but at least you'll see what it looks like, the number, and then you all can revisit that conversation of what you all think you can reasonably, and what the budget can
Yeah.
reasonably
Right.
Because
handle.
right now, we have 2 meetings per month,
Right.
and then if you talk about 2 days, and then the
Break it
community
down.
engagement,
We haven't even
going out
gotten
on
to-
different functions, it's like, and training. It's a commitment.
Well, one of those things I think is good to meet with them, and I understand your point, but I think that we are the bridge to the community, and so whatever we learn there, we will share with the community. So if they close it, it'll be fine, but it's our responsibility to share that information with the community, like you said, at the community meeting. And one of the things I think is important is that we don't want to make this an us against them. We want to make sure that we're all trying to work together, because when we work together collectively, things get moved along better, in my opinion. So we don't want to say, no, we don't want to come to your meeting, we want to do this. We can take the suggestion, like you said, Mr. O'Neill, it's got to break it down, like you said, if we see trends, we may not want to call them out in a meeting of everyone. We might want to bring them in and say, hey, we'd like to set up a meeting with you, and that would count as something.
And I don't have a problem with the convenience of the date or time where those chiefs may be meeting. That works. I'm saying their association meeting is their private association meeting. If we do it the hour later at the same location and it's a public meeting, I'm fine with that, just because it's in the location and everything is set. But right now, I believe their meetings are their meetings. And so I understand what you're saying, coming out of the meeting, we can share it. Public perception may create a problem saying, well, why'd you have a closed meeting with them in the first place? And I'm just saying, avoid even the appearance of, well, we didn't get it all. We just got the filtered version of what you wanted us to know.
But that's part of our responsibility, is to not, that perception is going to be built with us, and I think that's part of that perception, that will build the public trust. A lot of times, we just need a seat at the table, so we represent the citizens. That's going to be our seat at the table, I believe.
For instance, they were talking about who's paying their dues and, stuff that we don't really care about. And I don't think it's not a public meeting for that reason, because they're talking about individual checking accounts and their budget and all of that. So it's not open. We could talk about whether we could have at one point a open meeting after one of their meetings, maybe one.
Yeah, that was a great idea.
Yeah,
That was
I know,
a great
that's
idea.
what, that's what
Fine,
I'm
but their
saying.
meeting is
I
their
agree.
meeting.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So we have to work with them to see if they're willing to do that, just to have maybe on one occasion, once per quarter, to have one of those public, meetings after their, committee.
I don't think we talk about
do they normally meet?
Once a month?
once a month.
But right now, we have you all going twice in a
Twice a
fiscal
quarter.
year.
Oh,
No, in a fiscal year.
okay.
So if you wanted to say, Mr. James, maybe for one of those two,
Mm-hmm.
we have asked them to extend and open it up or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Would that, with both of them, I'm asking.
Again, I'm trying to cover us. So I
That's
go,
what I'm saying, looking at the language of legislation, I know our meetings have to be open meetings.
Right.
There's nothing that says that those meetings, those quarterly meetings have to be open meetings.
It's us meeting with them.
but if
to
we,
get
if we get together collectively, I think open meetings applies to us. And that's where I'm thinking it's somewhat of a catch. I understand what you're saying, it doesn't necessarily say that, but if we get together and we
We're
discuss
invited, and that's
PhD,
administrative, but
we
that
now-
one is administrative based on our legislative requirements. So we wouldn't run, we're attending something else. We're not holding it, we're attending. And so I don't think you would have, an issue.
As long as
Now
we don't run a
because
foul, I'm good. If we
Okay.
find, and we check that we don't run a foul, that's what I'm just trying to avoid.
Yeah, 'cause the other concern that I would have is, if the value in that meeting that we would run with them would be to be able to have very specific conversations about trends and issues that we're seeing, making it public would maybe make them reticent to participate as well. And I think we could then hold ourselves accountable by saying, we're gonna have this meeting and then produce a document at the end that goes over, here's some findings, things that we discussed, so that we could make that public. but have the details of it and sort of the meat of the conversation happen first, and then be able to take out the finer points that we could make public. Just because I think we do need to be able to get these folks in a room and be able to talk about some very, some sensitive, critical issues that, I think would make anyone uncomfortable in the public. But that we still would hold ourselves accountable, because that's all we can really control, to say, okay, we want to share this.
And I think it would be helpful, that's the holding of the meetings, but the portion about kind of a reporting, maybe you all can look at adding that as one of the objectives when you work on them, so as to make sure we cover that, okay? And I'm gonna just write in my notes, reporting, and then look to you all to say what that looks like. So what I'm asking, I put 10 here because, Ms. Bryant, you were at 10, so I wanna make sure I honored that you were saying up to 10 objectives. So, doesn't mean you have to, but I wanted to make sure.
And it doesn't have to be the same number of objectives.
No, I just put it here so that you could write it in and then talk about it. Okay, so that was under goal 1, that's the only one we did. If you all could look at goal 2, objective 1. It was objective to implement process for timely transmission of complaints from PAB to law enforcement agencies, and then the milestone is 4 complaints of police misconduct to appropriate law enforcement agency within 3 business days of receipt. So that was one that was a statutory requirement.
I have a question about that.
Mm-hmm.
So, the law enforcement agency gets it, but we don't get any kind of notice about, and I think maybe we may have talked about this last meeting, that we'll get a monthly report about what was transmitted, that just a synopsis, not necessarily the details.
So let me take the continuum. It's at the beginning, because one of the things we're starting to talk about is that we will probably be, because you get to investigate maybe on the back end, that if the PAB receives a complaint, and you have to transmit it by the 3 days, only staff will see that.
Yes.
Board won't see that.
Or it's transmitted.
We won't see, right, we won't.
Okay.
We won't do that. But coming back, that's the discussion we need to have with the ACC, the IG, on how we get to see it, or when they receive them in the system, let's say they get 10 complaints, how do we know they've received 10 complaints? We're trying to look at a centralized database so that we know what's coming in to all of the law enforcement agencies. Because we wouldn't know unless they tell us or unless they put it in a database.
Yeah, so that's also because maybe there's some really good things that, that there may have been a complaint, but it was resolved and it was a good outcome ultimately. We wouldn't know about that, and that's part of keeping the community informed.
Well, that's what I read. So any investigation, no matter what happens, you have a right to get that. That's what the law says, you get it. So there are two different things. One is just the receipt of any complaint, knowing that complaints come in wherever they come in.
Right.
That's one piece. And we are talking about, can we get a centralized database? So if Morningside gets it, PAB knows we got it. If PAB got it, Morningside knows. That's just the receipt. Then there's the one where the law enforcement does it, they do their investigation, and they transmit it to the ACC. The conversation is, at what point does the PAB have access to that information? And whether or not there's been discussions about redacting, not redacting, how far does it, you don't get it until total resolution. So it's really trying to understand where on that continuum you receive the information. And that's the conversation you all are gonna have to have with the ACC and that. Because it's silent to some extent in the legislation. So.
Danny B?
That include criminal investigations.
That come in, and that's still a discussion. And one that I suspect you would say it should include internal and external, but I don't, because in here.
Well, I know that was a point of discussion
Yeah.
previously,
Yeah.
as things were set up,
Yeah.
and that
I believe so.
went back and forth, and I was just curious if that settled or if that went somewhere.
I don't think anything is
It sounds
settled
like
right.
it's not,
Yeah.
not quite yet.
Mhm.
Okay.
And something that the chair and the board is gonna have to, kind of opine.
Yeah, 'cause I know there's a lot of, even logistics questions about, data maintenance, and how that repository might work, if it's separate or incorporating. And I know even from just an HR standpoint, means that an officer's or a staff member's personnel jacket, if they're being considered for action or positive action, like promotions and things like that, they then have to tap into more databases.
And I think one of the things you all will be looking at as part of this is the use of technology.
Yes.
And at what places that technology can be utilized. And I think that's gonna be a lot, the best practices around the country. Okay. I'm on page 6.
Wait, real quick, I have a question about this. Do staff track internally, like, we got a complaint on this day from this municipality, and then push it on? You know what I'm saying? 'Cause, well, you're not a yes, so, okay, that's my question.
Rebecca? Okay. Numbers,
Well, before we leave that, if we're tracking it, but you're saying we can't know that, I guess that was the question I think Ms. Bryan was saying, that's what we asked last, was, could we get that summary information? But is there a reason, and there may be,
which, summary of which place? The
complaint
summary of
that
what
come
comes
in.
to
only
PAB?
what comes to the PAB. That's the only thing we're saying is there's a summary that we can get monthly of what complaints come to the PAB. Not saying what the issue is, but
Right.
here's how many, here maybe the jurisdictions represented, the
Mhm.
same
Yes.
overview, stats.
Yeah.
Okay.
And one of the things that I think we're talking about is if it goes in, so whatever's gonna go into that quote-unquote centralized database, you would get too. Because you would not only get yours, but you would get, if it works. So yes, the answer, I won't even belabor it, yes.
Get confused, but I'm gonna
So-
smooth out.
No, I mean, ask the question, because this is a conversation we're
We're,
gonna be
we're gonna
having.
get that, I know what you're asking, and yes, we are gonna have access to that.
Right there.
Yeah, we are.
I don't, but.
But that chance there.
Yesterday.
Because I think, I understand what you're saying. I think that may be a step ahead of where I'm thinking about, to be honest.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
Because one thing we are, again, we may look at each piece compartmentalized, but when we have those discussions, we're gonna see the implications from soup to nuts.
Breaking it, right.
So what implications, what should you get? Because you all may have investigatory powers on the back end.
Right, which I understood you were
Yeah.
saying, which exists now. So in limited information, saying, I can't tell you this much because you may investigate this later on. Totally get that. That's why I'm just saying this is some summary information. I don't know the specifics of a case. But if I understand you correct,
Yep.
that summary information is readily available, it can be shared.
Yes, yes. I confirmed that yesterday, yes, sir.
Okay. Just say yes.
Oh, don't, that's a lot of pressure. Am I correct, Denise?
Correct.
Thank you. Denise said yes.
We know it's done. Okay. Improve police accountability. In this one, we're gonna read them, but you all, these again were set, but please look at them and next time be ready to, the first objective is examine policing among law enforcement agencies. Can we pull this from the guidance? Second, identify trends in the disciplinary process of police officers. 3, recommend changes to policies that will improve police accountability. 4, utilize technology to track and analyze data. And 5, seek community feedback. Of those, is there any that cause you all some concern?
And I'm completely open if there is a justification for it. I just was a little confused about how community feedback, towards police accountability. Is it just another measure of community feeling like it's actually happening, or I could kind of see seeking community feedback going in maybe a different goal, but.
You might go in another one too.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be one of them, you can have, but I think this is one that, you know, they're in the field, they see it, they may have suggestions on how you can make it more accountable, that just the 11 of you might not even think about. You have a town hall and somebody comes up and makes recommendations. It was really another set of eyes looking at the process and offering it there. But if you all look at it and decide you want to take it off, but is there any other ones that are causing you?
That point, I think that could go in the next goal, because the next goal is the one about keep the public informed and ensure transparency. So to your point, I think that might just fit in right there in that next.
Well, I think they're two different, let's be clear. One is sending out one's coming in, right? We're keeping what we have given, and this is what they might know. Right.
No, yeah, I'm saying, that goal, like, yes, we are, like, communicating externally to the community. We can also just tack on, you know, like, you can provide feedback in this space also. I'm saying, since we're already talking about community interface in that goal, it might be easier to just throw in all the community stuff in one goal.
So y'all can read them and
You saying
decide.
basically if we have a community meeting, probably gonna have people, some people might ask questions.
That too, yeah, people also might, yeah, like, we have a town hall or something, leave them, chime in.
And I think the last page, right, did I miss? Okay, we're on number 4, I'm sorry, on the inform the public. Okay, 1 is provide opportunities for community members to observe and or participate. It says deliberations, but in PAB meetings, that's really what that means. And the milestones provide for public attendance at in-person PAB meetings, stream in-person and virtual meetings, and this one that you all need to really discuss, provide for a public comment period during all PAB meetings. So, any thoughts on that?
One period, you're meaning like opportunity for community members to come in and say something to us?
Or on
versus
camera?
this,
Mhm.
okay.
Any thoughts on that one?
I think that's
All right, then the second objective, provide ongoing information about policing matters to the community. Again, we can wordsmith since we got some, but the one was to publish a report not later than December 31st of each year.
should be where we host a community forum.
You can put that when you all bring back, we left a lot of empty slots for you all.
So, Ms. Bryant, you're saying,
10 of them.
you're saying before the publish of the annual report, sometime in December, hold a public, community forum?
Before or after, I mean,
Yeah, I
Okay.
think they're separate, it's just another objective, right?
that's just another objective.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna put on, but you all can stick those in there. Okay. All right, and then the last page for tonight, Mrs. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
is, objective provide formalized and training opportunities. It should be formalized training opportunities, for PAB members, staff, and consultants as deemed necessary or as directed by the Maryland Police Training and Standards Commission. That's one objective. The other is ensure, I don't know what that was, ensure effective PAB operations, and the milestone is develop and implement rules of procedure for the operations of the PAB.
Mr. Jenks says promote, right, Mr. Jenks?
I can't use ensure. I mean, in this instance, we may be able to ensure,
Okay.
right? Because this is solely on us, so ensure,
So we can control
we
that.
can control that. So if I can't control it all the way, I don't want to ensure it.
Yes, sir, Mr. Debbie.
It's just a question, is there funding available for external state police?
We do have some money in the budget for training. An opportunity to get more money.
So what comes to mind, there's some extra, a number of external, organizations that teach, for example, de-escalation techniques. Now, I'm less of a fan of the shoot, don't shoot. I know that police departments love that, and they love to put you in the... But, there's some other training, you know, the Nicole Conference, for example.
We
Some of the
have,
other things
we're
where
talking about that.
it might be helpful to send a contingent of folks who or, you know, different representational things where we can garner ideas from other organizations, or where we can look at addressing different issues that we might come across.
We have, with the chairman and staff and us, we had identified a couple that we can put on new business for the next meeting. And if you all have some, like you know, can you send it to Denise, and we'll just add it to the list of prospects?
Sure.
Yeah.
There's an internal investigations conference every year in Vegas.
Well, if you have any suggestions on the training, because that's in there, we can add it and place it on new business.
No, I mean, it's a serious conference, it's not just a booth.
Just in Vegas.
Yeah.
I know, you say Vegas, but it
What
actually is
happens in
an internal
Vegas?
investigation.
Okay.
So,
There's a lot also in that.
So what I would ask you all, I mean, again, I want to say this ad nauseum. I think you all were phenomenal tonight, and I think we got a lot done in the first, year. What would be exceedingly helpful, for the next meeting is if by, and let's pick a date, if you have any objectives and milestones to add, if you can provide them to Denise or to staff by what would be reasonable for you all to think you can get it, because you know we're coming back in 2 weeks, and we would need, I think, a week
Right,
of, so they can compile them and send them out to you so you all can look and be ready.
Maybe next Wednesday.
Wednesday,
Next Wednesday.
what's Wednesday date?
Wednesday,
Yeah, Ms. Brown, hurry up. Wednesday is the
29th, yeah.
Okay, so by 3/29, close of business, if I could get you all to provide to Denise or to staff, objectives, because we've agreed on the goals. And let's be kind. You can give us your vision and your objectives and milestones, and if you're so inclined, your measures. On Wednesday, March 29th, 23. Again, on March 29th, 23, your vision, any one you want to offer, your objectives, your milestones, and your measures. Dan?
I'd like to make a suggestion, or a request, actually. If you could document to us, Word document, so that we can...
This is a Word doc, so yeah.
Yeah, so that we can write in it or make comments or do those
Yep,
other things. So
absolutely.
that when we send it back
Absolutely.
by the 29th, close of business.
Yep.
And
It's there.
in that email, perhaps, just lay out what's due and by when.
Yeah, but let's keep that date, and I'm happy,
Yeah.
we're happy to do that, but let's put that on there, to March 29th. Vision, objectives, milestones, and measures.
And we'll,
By close of business, March 29th, 2023.
will we be getting the updated version of the document, like with these edits?
Yes, yes, the answer is
We should
yes.
get that.
And if hers has gotta be there by tomorrow, then I need to update this, but it's not that much, you can look at this, I'll make a copy of this,
As long as it's...
so y'all can get that by tomorrow. Okay, so what the goal will be, I kinda thinking I'll leave it to you all, but this took a minute, but we got it done. I suspect objectives, milestones and measures will probably take us the whole time, the next one. And so not try to split it and start a community. So we would just finish this section up,
Okay.
and then the following 2 weeks, we would be ready to start on the community outreach section. Are you all comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay, that'll be our plan of action. then you gotta,
Oh.
your head is doing like
Yeah.
that. Go ahead.
That's my natural state, Mike.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'll be quiet. And just to give you all a forecast, we are trying to decide after that, we know we're doing a community. The next, we have one that's like the, technology and the matrix and measurements and all of that, which, will be after. What we're trying to decide is whether that'll come before the rules of procedure, right? Or whether it'll come after. And if you all have any thoughts when you send that stuff back in terms of order, just let us know. Because we were gonna go through the whole thing and then get to the rules of procedure after we finish those, subcategories here. If that doesn't work or you think a better way, then let us know and we'll move it around. Okay? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
My part.
No, fine, we did that. Thank you. So, with that being said, we have anything else anybody wants to bring up? Okay, cool. We'll wrap up in a second, but I wanna say to those that are watching, thank you for watching. Hopefully you were able to hear us. If not, please just shoot something in the comment. We're working on getting some better equipment. And again, we apologize to those that have watched the previous videos. I heard your concerns as the chair, and they have been addressed. And so thank you for reaching out to me. With that being said, is there a motion on the floor to adjourn?
To adjourn.
Second. Second and third, okay. So we're gonna go.
2.1, 2.2.
Okay. All in favor? Any objections? Meeting adjourned at 9:07. Thank you.
I'm sorry, did we